1 years old, and I run a small but growing design and fabrication company in Houston, Texas, specializing in signage systems and brand identity for local businesses. Everything I have today, the office, the contracts, the stability, I built with my own hands. No family money, no emotional safety net, just late nights, unpaid invoices, and a stubborn refusal to quit when quitting would have been easier. The story I'm about to tell happened 3 years ago, during my father's 59th birthday. At the time, my company had finally stopped bleeding money. After 2 years of barely surviving, things were steady. Not glamorous, just steady enough for me to breathe again. I rarely went home for family gatherings, birthdays, Christmas, Thanksgiving, not because I was busy, but because I was tired. Tired of being compared to my older sister, Skylar. Tired of being the quiet disappointment in every room. If I skipped an event, my mom would say things like, "Your business clearly isn't doing well if you can't even come home." Or worse, "Skylar always makes time for family. She has a good heart." So I learned the rules: call, apologize, explain, absorb the guilt, repeat. A week before my dad's birthday, I called my mom, Aubrey, to ask about the plans. Her voice was calm, casual, almost gentle. "We're keeping it small this year," she said. "Just cake and a family dinner. Next year, when your dad turns 60, we'll do something big." Then, just before hanging up, she added something unexpected. "Don't come home this year, and don't worry about a gift. Focus on your work. Traveling is a hassle, and your dad isn't expecting anything." I sat there after the call ended, phone still in my hand. For the first time in years, I felt touched. I thought maybe, just maybe, they were finally thinking of me. That night, I stared at my packed work calendar, but my mind drifted elsewhere. I knew my parents. Love in our family was never spoken. It showed up quietly, in silence, in expectations, in disappointment. And I knew if I did nothing, I'd still be blamed later. 2 days later, I remembered something. Years ago, at a family dinner, my dad had joked about wanting to visit Hawaii at least once in his life. My mom laughed and said they'd need to win the lottery. That memory wouldn't let go, so I booked it. 6 days, 5 nights, Maui, ocean view, almost $5,000. I printed the tickets, folded them neatly, and placed them in a white envelope. For the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful. A quiet, dangerous kind of hope. The kind that makes disappointment hurt worse. The morning of his birthday, I got in my car and started the 2-hour drive home. I didn't know yet that I wasn't invited. I didn't know yet that the door I was driving toward had already been closed. And I definitely didn't know that before the day ended, I would lose my family forever. The closer I got to Fredericksburg, the more my chest tightened. Not from anxiety exactly, but from a familiar dread I didn't want to name. I kept telling myself it would be fine. My mom had said small dinner, small cake. Maybe she was just trying to keep it low stress for me. Maybe for once they really meant it. I had soft music playing, but I wasn't listening. My mind kept replaying the moment they opened the envelope. My father's rare smile, my mother's hand over her mouth. Maybe even a hug, the kind we only did for photos. And then, right before I turned onto their street, I saw the cars. Not one or two. A line of them, parked tight along both sides of the road like the neighborhood had been warned in advance. My foot eased off the gas on instinct. My mom's voice echoed in my head. "Don't come home this year." My throat went dry. For a second, my brain tried to rescue the moment. Maybe they changed plans. Maybe they decided to invite people last minute. Maybe they forgot to tell me because they didn't want me to feel pressured. I wanted to believe that so badly I almost felt angry at myself for doubting it. I circled twice before finding a spot far down the street. I parked, got out, and started walking quickly, envelope tucked safely inside my coat like it was something fragile. The gate wasn't locked. That should have comforted me. Instead, it made my stomach drop. Because I realized something as I stepped onto the walkway. If they didn't expect me, they didn't bother to secure anything. The closer I got, the louder the voices became. Laughter, plates clinking, the warm hum of family. Except it wasn't my warmth. It was the warmth of a room that didn't save a space for me. I reached the front porch, and right as my hand lifted toward the doorknob, I heard my Uncle Jaden's voice from inside. "Wait, Hannah's not coming this year?" There was a pause, a beat of quiet. Then my father answered. "He's not coming," he said. And then, like he was spitting something bitter from his tongue, he added, "It's better that way. A failure like her only ruins the mood when she shows up." I froze. Not metaphorically. My hand hovered inches from the door, muscles locked like my body was trying to protect me by refusing to move. A failure like her. The words hit so cleanly I almost couldn't breathe. And the worst part? The room didn't go silent. No one gasped. No one said, "That's too harsh." Instead, there was laughter. Low, uncomfortable laughter. The kind people make when they agree, but don't want to admit they agree. Something in my throat tightened, like I'd swallowed glass. I told myself to leave. Turn around, walk back to the car, drive away, and pretend I never heard it. But then another voice, sharp and loud, sliced through the noise. My cousin Brian. "Hannah, she's here." And suddenly I could feel it. All eyes. Turning. Like a spotlight sweeping across a stage. The door swung open before I could decide what to do. Brian stood there first, his eyes wide, his expression caught somewhere between guilt and alarm. Behind him, the living room was full. People I recognized, people I avoided. Aunties with their tight smiles, uncles with their judgmental stares. And then my father turned. He looked straight at me. For 1 second, just one, something crossed his face. Unease. Like he'd been caught with his hand in something ugly. But it vanished fast. He gave a short laugh and waved a dismissive hand like I'd just walked in on a harmless joke. "I was kidding," he said, not even bothering to sound convincing. "Don't take it seriously." Then he turned away, just like that, as if my presence didn't matter enough to explain, as if the words he'd said weren't heavy enough to crush someone. I stepped inside anyway, because my legs moved, even when my heart didn't want to. I nodded at a few relatives I didn't care to see. Some nodded back, others didn't. Whispers started almost immediately. "She came empty-handed? Still not successful, huh? Skylar's doing so well. Hannah's always been, I heard it all. I kept walking like I didn't. Then the kitchen door swung open. My mom appeared with Skylar right behind her. And the moment my mother saw me, her face tightened. Not surprise, not joy. Annoyance. She looked at me like I'd walked in with mud on my shoes. "Why didn't you call ahead?" she snapped. "So we could prepare food? I only cooked for 20. 20. My eyes flicked around the room. There were more than 20 people. And the way she said it, like I'd ruined something, made my stomach twist. That's when it landed. This wasn't last minute. This wasn't accidental. This was planned. And I wasn't meant to be part of it. Skylar stepped forward like she'd been waiting for her cue. Her voice was loud enough for nearby relatives to hear. "You showed up with nothing," she said, shaking her head dramatically. "It's Dad's birthday. The least you could do is bring a decent gift." I felt my fingers tighten around the envelope inside my coat. My heart pounded once hard. I almost pulled it out right then. Almost. But something, instinct maybe, stopped me. Because the way Skylar's eyes glittered, it didn't feel like she wanted me to show love. It felt like she wanted me to be embarrassed. And my father didn't even look at me. He was talking to Uncle Jaden, smiling like the happiest man alive, like he hadn't just called his own daughter a failure. So I swallowed everything. I forced a crooked smile. And I said nothing. I moved quietly to the side of the room and found an empty chair near the window. I sat down. 5 minutes later, Skylar glided over like she owned the air around her. "That's my seat," she said, pointing down at the chair like it belonged to her by birthright. "If you want to sit, go grab one from storage." I stared at her for a second, stunned. It wasn't about the chair. It was about reminding me I didn't belong. Before I could even respond, Brian spoke up behind me. "I'll go with you," he said quickly. His tone wasn't cheerful, it was protective. Like he could see the way I was shrinking, piece by piece. I nodded, grateful in a way that hurt. We walked out to the storage shed together. The air outside felt colder, cleaner, like I could finally breathe. Brian didn't say anything at first. He just grabbed 2 folding chairs and handed one to me. When we walked back inside, the laughter hit us again like a wave. The party officially started when the clock struck 11. Candles, singing, forced smiles. My father stood up after the song, clasping his hands behind his back, soaking in attention. "The party's officially on," he announced. "Everyone help yourselves." People clapped and moved toward the food. The clinking of plates and silverware began. The room lifted into that noisy, messy energy parties always have. And right when it seemed like the worst had passed, my father's voice rose above the crowd. Sharp, clear, loud enough to silence the room. "Hannah," he said. I turned instinctively, already bracing myself. His eyes didn't soften. His face didn't change. He said it like a rule. "The food's not for you. Just drink water." For a moment, I didn't hear anything else. No laughter, no chatter. Just those words hanging in the air like smoke. And the look on people's faces, the way some froze, the way some avoided my eyes, told me they understood exactly what it meant. This wasn't a joke. This was a declaration. And in that instant, I felt something inside me begin to crack. For a moment, I honestly thought I'd misheard him. Not because the words weren't clear, They were painfully clear, but because part of me still couldn't believe a parent could say that out loud. In front of relatives, in front of guests, on his own birthday. I stood up slowly. The chair scraped softly against the floor, the sound somehow louder than it should have been. Every movement felt heavy, deliberate, like my body needed time to catch up with what my mind had just registered. "Are you serious right now?" I asked. My voice didn't sound like mine. It wasn't soft anymore. It wasn't polite. It carried something raw underneath, something that had been building for years. My father didn't hesitate. Dead serious. No explanation, no embarrassment, just certainty. I felt my hands curl into fists at my sides, nails biting into my palms. Not from anger, not yet, but from restraint, from the effort it took to keep myself from shaking. I took a breath and asked again, slower this time. "Then tell me why." Before my father could answer, my mother spoke. Her tone was calm, almost reasonable. That made it worse. "Hannah," she said, "you weren't invited. You came on your own. I only prepared food for 20 people. There it was, said plainly, cleanly. Like it was logistics. Like I was an inconvenience, not her daughter. Before I could respond, Brian stepped forward. "It's okay, Aunt Aubrey," he said gently. "Hannah and I can share a plate." For a split second, hope flickered. But my father crushed it immediately. "No," he snapped. His voice dropped, sharp and controlled. "She came uninvited. Having her here makes me ashamed in front of everyone." The word ashamed landed like a blow to the chest. "She should be grateful I haven't kicked her out yet," he continued, showing up empty-handed to her own father's birthday. "That tells you everything. She's a failure." The room went quiet again. Not the stunned kind, the complicit kind. I saw heads nod, just slightly, like they didn't want to be obvious about agreeing, but didn't disagree either. I saw people look at me, then quickly look away, as if watching something uncomfortable but unavoidable. And then Skylar spoke. She always knew when to strike. "If I were you," she said coolly, "I'd be embarrassed. I wouldn't have come at all. Honestly, it's best if you leave. Your presence is making everyone uncomfortable." That was it. That was the moment something inside me finally went still. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even hurt the way I expected to be. I felt clear. Clear in a way I had never felt before. I had spent my whole life trying to earn something that was never going to be given. Approval. Respect. A place at the table, literally and figuratively. And standing there, surrounded by people who shared my blood but not my humanity, I understood something with brutal certainty. I didn't need to try anymore. If, in their eyes, I was an embarrassment, something to be hidden, minimized, cropped out of family photos, then I had no obligation to keep carrying their expectations. I decided to leave, but not quietly, not without letting them understand exactly what they had just thrown away. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out the 2 envelopes. The room buzzed softly, confused murmurs rippling through the silence. I didn't look at my parents first. I turned to Brian. "Open this for me," I said, handing him 1 envelope. He looked confused but nodded. Then I walked over to my mother. She was still holding her plate. I held out the 2nd envelope with both hands. "This one's for you." She hesitated. Didn't take it. So I placed it gently on the table beside her and stepped back. Brian opened his envelope. His eyes widened. He stared at the paper like it might vanish. Then he read aloud, his voice trembling just enough for everyone to hear. "Tour reservation. 6 days, 5 nights in Maui, Hawaii. Passenger, Hannah Young. Departure date, May 21st, 2022. Full service package, 4-star hotel, round-trip airfare, paid in full." The room fell completely silent. I looked straight at my father. "I used to think the best birthday gift was something a parent once dreamed of," I said calmly, "and I believed that maybe, after all these years, doing something like this would finally make you see me differently." I paused. "But now I understand something." I turned slightly, making sure my voice carried. "No matter how hard I try, it will never be enough." I looked at my mother. "In front of you is your ticket. The total value of both tickets is $4,830. I paid for everything. I didn't need to add anything else." People started murmuring immediately. Phones came out. Quick searches, quiet gasps. "He's not lying," someone whispered. "That's real money." I didn't smile. I didn't feel victorious. I felt done. My father cleared his throat. "We were just joking," he muttered. "You didn't have to take it this far. Sit down and eat." My mother added quietly, "Thank you, Hannah." I shook my head. "These tickets will be canceled," I said. "I'll call the tour company and change the names." The room stiffened. "And the person who deserves to go," I continued, "is right here." I placed a hand on Brian's shoulder. "I'm giving you one of the tickets. Brian stiffened, shocked. He leaned toward me and whispered, "Are you sure? I don't want to make things worse." "I'm sure," I said without hesitation. "This ticket isn't for people who look down on me. It's for someone who stood up for me." He nodded slowly, eyes glassy. "I'll update the details and send you everything later," I added. My father stood up then. "You can't do this," he hissed. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I didn't owe them anything anymore. I turned around and walked out. No goodbye. No apology. Brian followed right behind me. "I can't stay at a party where basic respect doesn't exist," he said aloud, just loud enough for everyone to hear. And for the first time that day, I didn't feel alone. I didn't cry on the drive back to Houston. That surprised me. I thought the tears would come fast and violent, the kind that blur the road and force you to pull over. But instead, there was only a strange quiet inside me, like something had finally shut off. When I got home around 3 in the afternoon, I dropped my keys on the table and stood there for a long time, staring at nothing. Not emptiness from loss, emptiness from acceptance. I had spent years convincing myself that if I tried harder, loved better, proved more, they'd eventually see me. They never did. They never wanted to. That night, I didn't eat much. I didn't open my laptop. I didn't distract myself with work the way I usually did. I just sat on the couch, letting the truth settle. Around 5, my phone rang. "Mom." I stared at the screen. Part of me wanted to let it ring, to block the number, to cut the cord cleanly and permanently. But another part, the last, stubborn piece of the daughter I used to be, answered. "Did you make it home safely?" she asked. Her voice was softer than usual, careful, measured. I didn't respond. After a few seconds, she tried again. "Did you eat anything?" There it was. Not an apology. A temperature check. "About earlier," she continued. "Things got a little out of hand." Still nothing. Then she moved to what she actually wanted. "Why don't we make the trip a family thing?" she suggested. "You, me, your dad, and Skylar. You could buy 2 more tickets. We'll go to Hawaii together and start fresh." I laughed. Out loud. Not because it was funny, but because it was exactly what I expected. "So that's why you called," I said, "to get me to buy Skylar a ticket." "No," she said quickly. "Don't take it that way." "I already gave the tickets to Brian," I replied calmly. "There's no trip left. If you want to go, buy your own." Silence. Then her tone changed. "Brian isn't family," she said sharply. "You gave tickets meant for your parents to someone who isn't even blood. Do you think that's right?" Something in me hardened. "From now on," I said, "Brian is the only family I have." She gasped softly, like she'd been slapped. My family ended the moment Dad stood in front of everyone and said I wasn't allowed to eat. I hung up. 2 days later, I sent the tickets to Brian by express delivery. That evening, he called me, his voice shaking. "I've never been on a trip like this," he said. "I don't even know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," I told him. "Just pack." A week later, we boarded the plane together. As Houston shrank beneath us, I felt lighter than I had in years. Not happy exactly, but unburdened. When we landed in Maui, the air was warm and gentle, like it wasn't asking anything from me. Brian looked at me and asked quietly, "Do you feel lighter?" I nodded. I really did. After the trip, I went back to work. Same pace, same discipline, but without the weight. I stopped chasing approval. I started choosing peace. That's when Ethan noticed the change. My boyfriend had always been steady, not loud, not dramatic. He never tried to fix me or save me. He just saw me. One night, weeks later, he said, "You don't apologize for existing anymore." And I realized he was right. 3 years passed. My company grew, quietly, solidly. We moved into a new office. Projects came in steadily. Then one day, a startup magazine reached out. They wanted to tell my story. I didn't share the article when it came out, but someone else did. 2 weeks later, my phone lit up with missed calls. 15 of them, from my parents. On the 3rd day, a message finally came through, from my father. "We're proud of you. Let's have dinner like we used to." No apology. No acknowledgement. Just an invitation back into silence. I didn't reply, because I had